All right, welcome back to the All Things Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Vic Lopez, as always, and on this one, I'm going to be starting off something new that I'm going to try to do every week. I'm going to do a top 5 after 5, and it's basically where I have the top 5 offenses and also going through the top 5 defenses after 5 games. Now, not sure how I'm going to do this upcoming week's one because obviously there's just not going to be a lot of games this week because it's All-Star break. I'm going to want to do them either on Saturdays or on Sundays. And I'm going to try to stick to it as much as possible. So without wasting much time, let's go straight to it. So I'm going to start with offense. Last 5 games, the Nuggets are the only undefeated team in this whole 5-game stretch. And they're at 131.2, just a booming offense, and they're third in their conference right now. No Russell Westbrook, no Peyton Watson throughout that whole 5-game sample. Now, Pelicans, not a good team. They beat them. The Magic, they're struggling a little bit. They beat the Suns as well, who are just after all the drama with the trade rumors at the deadline and all that good stuff. Then they played the Blazers back-to-back. So expected to go 5-0, doing it without, Russ, without Peyton Watson, but obviously still the superior team to all the teams they beat. So, good to see that they did what they were supposed to, and they're doing it in really good fashion. So moving on to number 2, New York Knicks, 122.7 offensive rating, 4-1, the third in their conference. Offense is not a problem with this team, and really it's going to be about defense with the New York Knicks. Like, what's going to happen, right? Like, they didn't move Mitchell Robinson and obviously didn't really make a splash in the front court department. So hopefully it means that when Mitchell Robinson does come back, that they're going to be able to protect the rim a lot better, because that's something that's really going to plague these New York Knicks come playoff time. Now, the teams that they beat the Rockets, they beat the Raptors, which is expected. They lost to the Celtics, beat the Pacers, and then beat the Hawks. So, pretty competitive schedule minus the Raptors and even the Hawks, right? And the Hawks, pretty tough, bad team to play these days, right? Like, they're a good, bad team. But yes, the Knicks just second overall in offense. And then we move on to a team that had a huge 5-game stretch on both ends of the floor. So Pistons, number 3 at 122.4. They're 4-1 in that stretch, 6th in the conference, losing to the Cavs in that first game of that stretch, then beating the Sixers, but without Cade Cunningham, and the Sixers had a full lineup. That's a huge win for the Pistons. Definitely a team that's just, it's so fun to watch. They play so hard. They share the ball. They don't play super fast, but they just stick to what they know works. And it's those heavy pick and rolls with Cade Cunningham. Malik Beasley's having an awesome shooting season, just an awesome season in general. Really nice to see Malik Beasley just kind of play some good motivated basketball after the Bucks kind of sent him off. And honestly, like, on the Bucks, it just wasn't working out with Malik Beasley. When he was hot, he was an excellent fit next to those guys as someone that can space the floor, someone with size, but defensively just not the guy that the Bucks needed at that end. Now, they beat the Hornets. They had a very easy schedule after those 2 games, beating the Hornets and then the Bulls back-to-back. Then we move on to the Cleveland Cavaliers, 4th with 121.7 offensive rating, 4-1 in the stretch. Obviously still first in the conference. They've been dominating all season long. They lost to the Celtics. Then they beat the Pistons. They didn't have Donovan Mitchell in that game, I believe. I don't have that in my notes, but I'm pretty sure. Then they beat the Wizards. They beat the T-Wolves and the Raptors. So kind of a mix of like some obviously strong teams that you're going to face in the regular season with a couple of, easy games to match up, but good job by the Cavs. OKC, 121.3 offensive rating. Obviously, Chet Holmgren is back, 4-1, first in their conference. They beat the Raptors. They beat the Grizzlies without Chet Holmgren. Then they beat the Pelicans. And then they beat the Miami Heat also without Chet Holmgren. And then, losing that game where it was a pretty rough loss for the Thunder against the Timberwolves, who are also trying to kind of, make a push. And now we're going to move on to the defense. So number 1 is the Brooklyn Nets. I was surprised to see this team here, 4-1, and they have some good wins here. Okay, 12th seed in the conference. Obviously, this is a team that they play so hard under Jordi Fernandez. They're actually a fun team to watch in the sense of, like, you don't really know who's gonna go off, and it's kind of a collective. And they just, like I said, they just play so hard. Jordi Fernandez is trying to win every single game that he can with this team, and these guys are just all about trying to win, but they're just not good enough to do it consistently. And you know, really good 5-game stretch for them. They beat the Rockets. That was a big win for them. Lost to the Wizards, surprisingly. Then they beat the Heat, Hornets, and Sixers. So really good 5-game stretch for the Nets. Then second in defensive rating is the Pistons. They're third in offense, second in defense in this 5-game stretch. Obviously 4-1. I went through their schedule, so definitely don't need to reread that part. Minnesota Timberwolves, third on this list, 108.8 defensive rating, 3-2 out of their last 5 games, and pretty tough schedule for the Timberwolves. You know, they beat the Rockets and they beat the Blazers, right? Really bad team, but they had to play the Cavs, who they lost to. Then they turned around and had to play the Bucks, who they also lost to, and then obviously they turned it around and beat the Thunder more recently. And that's a pretty tough schedule of 5 games for the Minnesota Timberwolves. 7th in the conference, trying their best to just climb. And defensively, they looked really good. Jaden McDaniels has looked pretty damn good too. And Anthony Edwards just shooting the lights out this year, taking a ton of threes, but making them at super high efficiency. So, you know, Timberwolves, you know, with that Julius Randle thing, we all knew it wasn't going to work. And it's just, you know, obviously he hasn't been around recently with that injury, and I honestly thought he was going to get traded. They probably just couldn't find someone to take him. And yeah, let's move along. 4th best defensive rating in this 5-game stretch is the Warriors at 3-2, 108.9 defensive rating, and they're 10th in their conference, losing to the Lakers, beating the Bulls, beating the Bucks. They lose to the Mavs, then they beat the Rockets. So pretty tough schedule there. Then moving on to the Celtics, they are obviously 2nd in the conference, 4-1 out of their last 5, 108.9 defensive rating. They played the Cavs, who they beat, lost to the Mavs, but then they beat the Knicks, they beat the Heat, they beat the San Antonio Spurs, a team that's, you know, definitely, you know, a team that people are concerned about in the sense of, like, people thinking, they're not as good this year. But it could just be the classic case of a team coasting after they've won their championship, and they're going to be turning it up when they start the playoffs. And I think that that's what's going to happen with the Celtics. I think they're every bit as good as last year. I think that they're actually better, if you ask me, even if the record doesn't say it. And the reason I say that is because you've already got that monkey off your back, right? Where it's like, you know, that championship is like, you guys haven't won it yet. It's not working. All that's gone because we know that what they have works. So they know how to win. They know what it takes to win. And now they've got guys, also the role guys, like a Peyton Pritchard, a Luke Cornett. They've got bigger roles because of guys being in and out of lineups. And they're going to be a lot more prepared come playoff time. They're going to be able to rely on guys that they didn't necessarily rely on in prior years because they've just gotten better and they're just a lot more comfortable with their role in this team. So I'm very confident in the Celtics' ability to get out of the East, but we'll see what happens with that. So that was the top 5 after 5. We'll see how long I stay with this idea. I want to do this once a week, not leave the breakdowns. I don't want to stop doing breakdowns. I need to start getting back to those. So I will get back to that. If there's any suggestions, like someone, maybe if anyone wants to drop a comment and tell me, you know, maybe look at a team and do some breakdowns for a specific team, maybe a certain player, I'm open to all that. Just drop the questions in the comments. You can always send an email, which I haven't been promoting really out there, and that's atbpodmail@gmail.com. I will leave it below on this video somewhere. And thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I will see you guys on the next one.